Okay. Hello, welcome to another day's desk. Today I've got with me the master of negotiation, long-time speaker, buddy and friend, Derek Arden. Derek, do you know, he used to be a bank manager, and yet he's still one of the most annoyingly positively minded people I've ever met in my life. Honestly, he could turn an earthquake into an opportunity to plant a seed. So if we could plant something in that hole, he's incredible. But Derek's true skill is in negotiation. Hi, Derek.
Hi, David. Thanks for inviting me. It's a real pleasure to be here. My potatoes are growing really well. I've planted the seeds, so they're really doing well.
Well, I mean it. You are a very, very positively minded person. You do try to see the positive in absolutely everything and everyone. So that's why I like you. But I respect you because of your negotiation skills. You have presented live both in terms of training, facilitation, and indeed very generously giving your time to certain charities and that to many, many thousands of people over the years. And in this short session, all I want to do is absolutely sort of open up that can of worms that we've got and help people with two main things. Number one, your quick fire top tips on what will help us negotiate more effectively to get a better result for everybody. But perhaps more importantly is number two, which is, in my experience, most people, they're afraid to negotiate because they're afraid of failing. It's a bit like sales. What's your top tips to help people overcome that so that they can, in the first place, start negotiating?
So you want me to take question one first or question two first, David?
Well, I suppose question two, because that leads into question one, doesn't it?
Okay, yeah, people don't like negotiating, and I've done some polls and I've done some surveys. And the first thing I want to tell you is when I was privileged to be a visiting lecturer at Henley Management College, which I was for 10 years, they did some surveys and found that the people that did negotiate earned twice as much as the average person who didn't. And they did some psychometrics to find out how fair that was. So you're going to double your money if you do negotiate professionally and well with a win-win outcome. But there's three reasons why people don't like to negotiate. Number one, they're afraid to ask. Number two, they're afraid of conflict. And number three, it's kind of a bit un-British to negotiate. It's a bit dirty. It's a bit smelly. It's a bit like the word you used before, sales. You know, sales. Nothing happens without a sale.
True.
So if you don't ask, you don't get. That's the first thing. Number two is that there's always going to be conflict in a negotiation. So it's how you handle the conflict. So, you know, saying things like it's a little bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. What can you do for me? Which is a statement followed by a yes tag question, as you will know, and that's gentle. And you might have noticed that I dropped my voice tonality as I said it, which is less threatening, and anybody can do that. And when I'm running a masterclass sitting on a stage or something like that, I get the audience to say that. I say, you know, it's a little bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. What can you do to help me? Or for a laugh, I say it's a little bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. If I did that, my partner would go crazy. And you wouldn't want that to happen to me, would you? With the old Bill Clinton hand on heart, you know, thing. And that gets a laugh. And if you get a laugh when you're negotiating, you're building rapport. People are beginning to like you. And that's what you should do in shops or when you're buying things. And that makes sense. So there's going to be some conflict, and it's how you handle conflict. And let's be fair, there's conflicts in life all the time. If I've got something that you want and we can't agree on a fee, there's a bit of conflict. So we've got to handle it. And the better we handle it, the better we'll be at everything we do. And as for the un-British thing, and it's un-American apparently as well, my American colleagues tell me, but the further south you go in Europe, the more common haggling and bartering becomes until you hit the Middle East, where if you didn't do it, they'd think you're a bit of a lunatic. So that's...
And you kind of answered the second part of that question, because I was going to ask you what are the consequences of not learning how to negotiate, and you've said it quite succinctly and very clearly, if not brutally there, which is those who negotiate earn twice as much. Are you prepared to leave that on the table?
And that's the earning. And of course, they get paid more because they get better results, they get better sales, they close more sales, they get better bonuses. They haggle for their salary, and you should haggle for your salary, because virtually any salary you get offered in the first place is not going to be the best offer. You must never assume that the best offer is the one that's put on the table first. It's not going to be with any professional negotiator. And then you come to your cost negotiations, you'll find that you'll get your costs down. So you get your income up and you get your costs down. And when you get your costs down, that's tax-free, David. People tend to forget that. You don't pay any tax on reducing your costs. And then there's the big third one that people forget. There's your relationship negotiating with your partner, with your family, with your mates, with your pals, where you go for dinner, where you go on holiday. And a lot of those things cause conflict, don't they? And when people disagree, so getting a win-win outcome in your relationships is really important. Could be more important than anything else.
So now you're going into marriage guidance as well.
Well, we try and steer out that. Don't want to get into that. I could get into big trouble, couldn't I, with counsel? But yeah, I mean, while we're on that, if we got 10 seconds, you can do a divorce on the internet for 300 quid, or you can do what one of my clients did. They paid lawyers over £500,000 on a estate, or whatever they had to split up, which was worth 1.4 million, and they paid the lawyers 500,000. How daft's that? How stupid is that? And of course, the lawyers love it, don't they? It's lovely, let's keep this fight going, So if you can get a deal, and it gets very emotional, and that's one of the problems with negotiating. Once they get emotional, people that can't see straight. So that's why they need a coach like you or I to just help them see through the issues, not necessarily a negotiating coach, someone that just says, hey, hang on a minute, have you thought about this? What's your goal here? What do you want to achieve? Making the other person suffer, is that really going to achieve a lot for you? It might make you feel better in the short term, but not in the long term.
Well, I know over your shoulder you've got that wonderful book that you wrote, Win-Win, there, and which is just rammed with very genuine top tips on how to help people overcome the nerves to negotiate in the first place, but more importantly, then how to negotiate more effectively. So give us a couple of scenarios, Derek, where either you or you've helped people to sort of really step up and say, perhaps tell us in a way that enable us to understand how we could do the same.
Well, yeah, there's a process with negotiating, David, and I just want to run through the 7-step process, and I'll give you an example. Yeah. Number one is preparation. Proper preparation prevents pretty poor performance. Preparation and positioning. People tend to often go into a negotiation looking a bit scruffy. How are you going to get something if you don't smarten up? And doing your research and doing your homework and looking the other side up on LinkedIn and see where they're coming from, what sort of person they are, mind mapping the issues, which is a very quick process. I know you teach people that. But getting all the facts down and getting all the facts out, what's missing, etc., and then sort of position yourself. What do I want to achieve here, and how am I going to go about it? So it is the goal setting. What's your goals for the negotiation? Vital. Number two is asking really good questions. The quality of the questions you ask determines the quality of the answers that you get. And then listening, number three, really carefully to how it's being said. We got 4 bits of kit to listen with: 2 ears and 2 eyes, and 1 bit of kit to talk with. So get all the information you can out of them by asking really good questions and listening to the body language, how it's said, what's not said as well. And then we come to tactics, negotiating tactics. Tactics are basically there to get you down to your walk-away position as fast as possible. If you don't agree this by 5 o'clock, we haven't got a deal. Sale ends at 5 o'clock. It's used on us all the time by stores and shops, and Amazon have one deal for that day, don't they? Have Black Monday, Orange Friday. I don't know. They'll get confused with all of it. The psychology of tactics, good guy, bad guy, linked to higher authority. There's tactics coming out of people's ears. One I like is the Columbo close, which is a sales tactic as well, where you say, I don't really understand where you're coming from, but the deal ends at the 5 o'clock or whatever. So and then you come to influencing, because people are only influenced, and you got to by people they like. The work of Giordini, which I'm sure you've talked to your colleagues about, very, very important, really overlooked. Liking and reciprocity being the top two, authority being the third one. Then we come to the haggling process, which some people think is negotiating. You've got to start high. You've got to anchor the price high, and then you can always come down. You can always come down with your pricing, but you can never, ever go up. It's a bit like skiing. You can whiz down the ski slopes, but you've got to get back on the lift to go back up, and it's almost impossible. If you open at, let's say I open at £10 for you on something, and you say, yeah, that's fine, Derek, I'm left feeling, well, I could have got a bit more. Whereas if I say, well, I'm normally £100 for this, David, but for you, I'm sure I can do something a bit less. What did you have in mind? Again, we can come down. So that haggling and conditional bargaining is really the jargon for it. I will make any concessions I give to you conditional on you giving something back to me. So if I do this for you, what will you do for me? I think that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and number 7 really is handling conflict and having the confidence to do it. So one of the questions, when I say what do you want to achieve from today at a masterclass, 50% of the people come back with the answer, I want to be more confident about negotiation. And of course the imposter syndrome comes into negotiations because people think they probably can't do it, or they shouldn't do it, or they're not good enough to ask for it, etc., etc. So they're my 7 tips. And I ask people, I go through that with people when I'm working with them. But you asked me about a story. I'm working with a construction company at the moment to help them negotiate an insurance claim, a £1.3 million insurance claim. And what I discovered when what I call got the drains up, and I call getting the drains up, really finding out what the story is, what's underneath everything you see on the surface, what smells are there, what's wrong with it, what tactics are being used, is it right? I found that really they hadn't done their preparation. They hadn't given the insurance company what they wanted. It was almost as simple as that. The insurance company wanted it in a structured way, as lots of people do these days, and they'd thrown the information at the client, and the lawyers said, well, let's sue them. We'll take them to court. You've got a good case, we'll take them to court. When I got involved, I said, first question, how much taking them to court is going to cost? £400,000, the answer came back. Well, shouldn't we try and go to mediation and sort it out in mediation? And they changed the lawyer, saved potentially £400,000 in costs, and we're going to mediation, and I'm going to be there assisting the client, not contributing, but just when we take a break and a timeout. And of course, that's very important when you're in negotiation. Take that break, get your head in the right place, listen to what I've observed, and then go back with a counter off and keep countering it. And
sounds like they said the same solicitor that your friend had.
Well, I think we have to be careful what we say about solicitors. You've probably got half your clients as solicitors, David. You probably have to delete this at the end of the session. But
so apart from,
we have to be careful, and that's the last thing I'll say on that, where people charge you an hourly rate and have no skin in the game themselves. That's what you have to be a bit careful of. That's all I'd say on that.
Right. Well, there's 2 things I know that you have always said that will help people become more confident to negotiate. Number 1 is get a great coach or mentor, such as yourself. Number 2 is just do it, because you only get better by doing it. Is there a third one, or are those the 2 big ones? How can actually people just get more confidence?
Well, I think they do need to brief and debrief negotiations. And when I was learning it and studying it, and I worked for Barclays at the time, I was passionate about making sure we did a proper briefing, flip chart, what are all the facts, how are they going to react to what we say, how are we going to react to what they say. But then afterwards, what can we learn from it? What did we do well? What could we have done better? And next time, how would we have handled it? So, you know, just the learning points and simple goals, you know, sort of simple coaching, really. What did we do? How did it work? And what are we going to do differently afterwards? And doing that pretty soon after the negotiation. So I was always pretty keen, if we were at a client's office, to go around the corner to a Starbucks and have a quick coffee at that point. And people would want to rush off. You know, I've got all sorts of other things to do. And that's a big mistake people make with negotiating. They forget to do the preparation. The average time, I was told, at a business school is about 10 minutes preparing for a negotiation, where it should be up to 20.
Really?
More than that. Yeah.
Wow.
And then afterwards, you know, then they want to get out the negotiation as fast as possible because there's conflict. They feel a bit embarrassed. And then they want to shoot off to the next meeting, and they're busy, rather than just go having a coffee and let's just debrief this from what we can learn. And often you might have a negotiating team and people might have come from different areas, so they have to get off. So you've one chance of eyeballing people is a quick coffee, paid for by you. How did we get on? What could we have done better? What are the learning points? And then circulate it, put it in your magic book, your journal. You know, most people keep a journal, don't they? If they're high achievers, yeah, there you go. Record it in your journal, and it sticks back better up here, and off to the next one. So that's what I would recommend. The evidence is not many people do that most of the time. There's a lot of good intuitive negotiators out there, but you know, how good's good enough? That's the question I ask people. You know, on a scale of 0 to 10, how good are you? And if you're a 6, what would it take to be an 8? If you're an 8, what would it take to be a 9? So yeah, that's the third one.
Derek, we could sponge you dry for a week, and I'm sure you'd still be able to keep going. All great value, all great tips. I'd highly recommend everyone gets in touch with Derek, connect with him on LinkedIn, grab him, stalk him, go through his bins, make crank phone calls, hang outside his house late at night looking through the curtains. But most of all, get his book and leave him a great testimonial on Amazon. Derek, thank you very much indeed for your time, my friend. And we'll catch up soon on a... Sorry, Derek, how can people get hold of you if they want to get hold of you?
www.derekarden.co.uk, or look at my YouTube channel. Do you know the way, David? I think the best way to get a hold of people these days is connect with them on LinkedIn. Emails get lost these days, apparently, and I'm told so. You know, LinkedIn's pretty fireproof. So I'd be delighted if anybody would link to me on LinkedIn. And David, keep up the good work, mate. You're a brilliant coach, and I love talking to you because you've got a fantastic sense of humour. So take care, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers, Derek.
Cheers, David.